All right. Well, I'm doing it. I've been sitting here for about 2 hours. It's like, I'm just going to do a live stream. Easier said than done, but I figured that I'm going to have to get over this fear if I'm going to do this in any meaningful way. So nobody reads long form content really, so I am well and truly out of my comfort zone right now. So bear with me while I get my recalibrate my head. But I thought that what I would do is start this weekly shooting the shit. It's a bit more casual, talk about the things that I have seen and discovered and explored over the week. I've been planning this new podcast for quite some time, and the thing that I've been struggling with is where the fuck do you start? It's digital politics. When everything is political and everything is digital, it's a little bit hard to start. There's plenty to talk about. I've got a line of guests. I've got a line of topics. Some topics I want to concentrate a bit more on just because they're just so juicy and just indicate so much. But it's been very hard for me to try and figure out the best way to do this. So I figured, well, let's just jump in. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not a TV person. I am not a YouTuber. I barely even like doing a selfie. So I am more comfortable as a writer. So I just need to get in and get better at this and hope for the best. And I know nobody's watching, so there's no pressure, so that's good. I'm all set up with all this gear and it's all great. There's a camera there and all my screens and my phone. It's cool. But I've been fucking around with it I decided to I was going to set up a podcast about six months ago, and it's been 6 months of figuring crap out. And I'm going to admit that that's a form of avoidance, and I now have no excuses because I now know what I'm doing. I have what I need. I have the guests. I have the topics, and I still sat here for 2 hours shit scared. So I didn't do hair or makeup, obviously, because that's just another way of avoiding and polishing and tinkering and fucking around and not actually getting this done. So hopefully I can get a little more confident, and I just realised that I have forgotten to pin my mic. So the sound will be better now as well. See, I am a star. So there's a few things I suppose I can talk about. God, it's been a week. I actually on this, I have made quite a conscious decision to not let... let me start. Let me go back. The reason I want to start this podcast, and it's whether it's under my name or called DigiPolitic or however it looks, however I monetize, I have no fucking idea. I'm figuring this out. It's early days. I just want to have conversations with people that I'm interested in and who I'm meeting just some incredible people throughout my day, my research, my career, my work, and I'm seeing that a lot of them are having the same frustrations, a lot of them are having the same struggles, and I just want to have some fun. I've been doing web work now professionally since 2005, and as an amateur since 1996 was my first web page. But I also have a degree in politics and postgrad and all that stuff. So I've always had a healthy interest, and both of these worlds have collided. So I don't know. I have maybe something to add. I have a lot of knowledge, but not a lot of presenting ability, as you can see. So where to begin? Maybe I've called this, because I love making fun of my own name, and it's really old and tired joke, I've called this Coffee with Taya. My name is pronounced Taya. It is not Tia. So the pun doesn't work when you say it out loud, but fuck it. I'm just going to own it. It's the least original joke ever. So I don't even know what to talk about because it's been such a huge week. There's been a number of events over the last few months where I've had something to say, but everything's a fucking mess. I do understand how we got here, but I don't fully understand how we got here. If you have the cynical view, you would assume that everything is fucked. If you have the optimistic view, like I do, you would have the view that we are just working through problems like we always do, and the world evolves and democracy evolves and people evolve a lot slower than technology. But I do tend to be on the optimistic end of the scale. I think I have to be, because I'm seeing a lot of very scary things. But this is just shooting the shit, and eventually if I actually have anybody watching, there might be some questions that I can answer. So I'm here because I've been doing this for years, and I had an agency, have an agency, and I just started to see that this wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wasn't happy. And I know happiness is one of those things that is a luxury for most people, but I reached a point last year where we were doing, SEO work, web work, the same old stuff. And I've always struggled in the market because I have always actively questioned the ethics. I've actively questioned the agendas of people who are in the business. I've actively challenged people who rip clients off. You see my archives, I'm annoying. But I reached a point where I think I finally started to see a little bit of success, and then I got sick and I realized that I didn't want to do this really anymore because it was killing my soul. And so we've just sort of recalibrated, regrouping. Oh God, I look like Shrek. I literally have done nothing. I've got home office face on. This is how I look in my natural habitat. I can't even remember what I was going to say. Oh yeah, I just started to see various things around the use of data and the unethical way that user experience design is going. It's just so focused on pleasing tech companies rather than getting back to what it used to be and back to the core of why I was even in this business, because I'm someone who had options in their career, and I chose this, and I chose it for, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in my industry of my age, I'm 40, who started in the early 2000s, saw where it was going, had an idealistic view of where it was going, potentially sort of suspected that it might go in this direction, but I don't think we fully comprehended the scale to which we could be complicit in some of this stuff. And I suppose because I've always been politically left, I suppose, I'm dodging that word now because it's become meaningless, politically left and critical of, I'm a critical thinker. I don't necessarily, I've got a healthy skepticism for authority and for the majority and for groupthink and those sorts of things. So I'm a natural contrarian. And I got into this for fun. I started as a fan. I started as a fan of a musician. I got my start just making banners and building websites and playing with Flash, and it just sort of built up from there. It never really, and it evolved. And I've always obviously been interested in politics because that's what I thought I was going to do. Excuse me. And I always blogged. And it was always just something where I was just Taya, and it just was a thing. So, but at some point, probably the turning point was probably around 2010, where I think the data became the thing. It became, data was our new god. It was the new gold. It was the new the new race to own everybody's data and farm that data and use that data as much as possible. And that was where I then obviously pivoted into what is now known as UX. But obviously I've done all of these things. But it's just, and social media really has changed things, but it's not fully to blame. I see this more as a phenomenon than as a conspiracy. That's just my natural inclination is to blame phenomena and systems where people benefit. I think that most people just, I think this is even with Mark Zuckerberg, I think I can see how you would sit there and go, what the fuck has happened? Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just wandered off. I'm just getting comfortable. So I felt like I should start to interview some people, start to talk, varying people, not just sort of academics and stuff, because I really want this to be interesting to people that have not even a passing interest, but are affected by it, which is everybody. A lot of people, we're seeing an election, we saw an election that was manipulated, I think, for lack of a better word. This is my coffee, by the way. But at the end of the day, we were all being manipulated. And I think that, and I used to put that down as, we laugh at the conspiracy theorists, we laugh at the kooks, but I think we're at a point where a healthy degree of self-protection and skepticism about our data and our privacy, and that the CIA are listening to our conversations. I think that that's actually something that is quite a reasonable fear at this point. So I have some concerns, and I also think that people, anyway, I don't know. So I kind of came out of advertising. Again, I was in it by accident. I was in it because I never really fit. I'm a designer, and I just freelance. And I've actually I've gone back to just doing mostly freelance consulting now on ethical UX, and doing design work and a bit of development, and because that's my happy place, is just sort of doing enough to live, and I want to do this thing. So I want to get better at this, and I want to get better at content and writing, and I am working on my book, which I've been talking about for now 10 years. I have 2 chapters, but anyway, I wrote 80% of a book in 2011, and then I lost it. And I scrapped it, but I lost the archive, so I can't even go back and use it. So it's starting again, but that's okay. It's just something that I do around paid work, and I'm trying to get better at this stuff. But anyway, this is just an intro live stream. This is not really anything of substance. What I'd like to do on a Friday is probably just go through some news, because I've got this cool little setup where I can switch now, and I can go, ooh, look, there's my phone. Look at that. Ha! But I actually found this really interesting. That I got this yesterday from Mumbrella, which Mumbrella, for those who aren't in the industry, that's the Australian publication, leading, I guess, publication on the advertising industry. And I thought that this was interesting because I've always had a problem with the culture of agencies in general, which are very heavily geared towards, I sound so old. I'm still young. 23-year-old hipster, but it's not it's not that, it's because they're cheaper, but also this really strong bent towards offshoring, towards hiring cheap and young staff, but also sort of wrapping it in this weird veneer of coolness. And I know that this is a thing that Google have done, and a lot of corporations are starting to do, which is they don't pay you more, they give you free lunch. And they give you a ping pong table, and they think that counts as payment. But so it's an interesting. I've always been critical of this, but I just found it very strange that they sent this survey, which is basically, are you cool enough to work in advertising? Now, for those who are in the industry, it's actually a science. It actually requires experience and ability. I don't think being cool is generally, unless you are the sort of creative director that is in the top 5, being cool is really probably not the top criteria. Being smart, being creative, being experienced, which increasingly is less and less of the case. This is why I left the industry, by the way, because I just decided that I have no interest in trying to compete against Canva. It's just Canva and Wix and all of those things. There is no point trying to compete anymore on that stuff at that end of the market. Anyway. So, but this just expresses a sort of broader problem of the industry, which is that when did we get away from substance? When do we get away from, I mean, even right now, I'm doing a live stream. I never thought in a million years that I would do such a thing, because people don't read articles. People don't read long form anymore, unless I write a book, and then they might if I... Yeah, so, but when did we get away from this? And this feeds into the article, well, the thing that happened this week about with Instagram, where they've removed their likes, which I think is a fabulous thing. Influencers, I don't quite understand why the influencers are complaining about this, because they can still see their metrics. So for me, is it a social proof thing? Is it because they can still show their metrics to somebody on the number of views, and it's just not public anymore? So it's a strange criticism. For those who don't know, I'm pretty sure most people are aware that this has happened now. But Instagram have removed the ability for anybody other than the user to see how many likes they have on their profile. You can still see how many followers they have. You can still see the content. I don't know whether it's going to affect the algorithm or not. I imagine not. I imagine that it's still going to feed popular content as it would, because that's how the algorithm works. But there's I've seen a few articles where the influencers are talking about how the sky is falling for them, and I'm sitting there going, well, I don't understand. Unless you are somehow competing for likes on an individual post on an individual daily basis with other influencers, then I don't understand the criticism, because you can still access your stats and you can still make those available to potential sponsors. So it's very weird, because we're seeing also YouTube clamping down on independent news stations, which is why I have no chance of monetizing this, even if I don't even have chance of anyone watching it, let alone monetizing it. But there's not just right. The problem with this is that the right wing claim right wing bias, the left wing claim left wing bias. Everyone's fighting, everyone's arguing. It's not. It's corporatism. They're arguing. They're favouring traditional media. They're favouring what they call credible, which you can understand that they're actually trying to... they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't, because they are, on one hand, attacked for fake news, letting fake news propagate. Then they're attacked for getting rid of, and for hate speech, right? Then they're attacked. Then they're brought. Then they say, okay, well, we can't. We'll just prioritise credible sources in the algorithm, and then independent publishers get caught in that net, and it's a little bit shit for everybody. There's an independent YouTuber, David Pakman, and I think he posted today that 75% of his videos have now been demonetized, and he's an independent journalist, and he just reports, and he's not right wing or anything like that. He's just fairly innocuous, if you ask me. So anyway. It's weird to see this happening. I think that the ideal of the internet is gone. We are now living... I can't help but feel that WALL-E was the most accurate depiction of where this world is heading. It's a little bit strange that everyone says The Simpsons predicted it, but I'm starting to say that Pixar did. Where it's just... We're heading towards mega corporations controlling all of the information, all of the product, and selling that product back to us, and also quashing independent voices, independent media, critics of that, and it's interesting times. Anyway, there's lots of stuff I could talk about. Where do you begin? In the last week, we've had a young girl beheaded on we've had there's a clusterfuck in Canada right now around self-ID. There is, I'm not going to say the T word because it gets too much attention and time as it is. This is where I'm sitting here going, well, let's just chatter for a while and get comfortable with the camera. This can always be deleted if it's not that good, but that's fine. I just need to get comfortable with the camera so that I'm more comfortable talking about the stuff that I want to talk about. And also, I'm better in an interview. So I'm better with a two-way conversation. I'm not very good at talking to this camera situation here because it just feels artificial. But it might get better. I'm hoping that it does. I don't know what to do. So let me think. I was going to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this JY case just yet, because I want to get it right, first up. And also, I also don't want to be part of... It's very hard when something is on your side and there's a victory. And I don't want to... Okay, when you're vindicated. I don't want to say victory because that's combative. But when when you're winning on your side, it's easy to participate in the behaviours that you criticise. And that's something where I have a slight dilemma, because this will come out. This is something that I want to focus on. I want to actually talk about this issue, and I'm going to be interviewing somebody probably tomorrow who is very much at the centre of this JY situation. Look up #WaxMyBalls if you want to get caught up. I can't. I just Anyway, okay, so the point with this is that it is very, very easy when it's your side and it's your friends that have been affected by it and you win against the bad guy. the bad guy. It's clearly someone who's just very, very unwell. To participate in dogpiling and justify that behaviour. And that's what we're actually seeing, is that this is my problem with left versus right, him versus her, them versus she, all of these things, is that there's multiple ways to look at things. There's multiple disciplines to look at them from. And there's so many different perspectives. But I think that at some point we need to address the behaviour and the culture that makes it acceptable to make someone the bad guy, make someone the enemy, and justify that behaviour. And that's a human behaviour. If you other somebody, it makes it easy. But, and I have immensely enjoyed seeing this particular case unfold, only because I've seen the fallout and I've seen it developing over the last 2 years. I've seen somebody who's been relatively untouchable and protected. It's been a very weird political journey for me in the last 2 years, purely because I have seen, I'm trying to think of my words. I've ended up being a lot more critical of intersectionalism in particular, or distorted version of it that is on the internet. This idea that we can twist ourselves into conversation after conversation after conversation with no real resolution. This idea that what is being touted in the progressive media, as well as the right-wing media and all of those things, but being willing to accept that there is a legitimate bias everywhere. And Noam Chomsky has famously talked about that before. There is no outlet that doesn't have some sort of propaganda aspect to it, and I think we need to actually talk about that honestly. I'm seeing, people like Epstein, who's a foul human being. But because he's aligned with Trump, he's fair game and he was protected, and it's all a big conspiracy and everyone gets in on it. But when it's someone on the left who is clearly behaving in the same way, they're protected and shielded because they have a specific, they have a status. And that's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate, because I think that if not for this issue, we could actually get along. And I think people, if you're actually seeing people double down a lot, especially feminists doubling down a lot over self-ID with the gender debate and all of this stuff, the conversation has gotten a lot more toxic and a lot more heated, purely because nobody is having a conversation about the actual issue. And this has been my awakening, because I bought this shit hook, line and sinker. I in some ways, I've kind of gotten my just desserts, in the sense that I feel a little bit like I understand how men feel when they feel like they can't win. It's a little bit like that, where we're walking on eggshells. So there's a little bit of increased empathy and compassion for my own behaviour under the banner of feminism towards men over the years as well, where what they're saying, it can be spun and twisted and dismissed, and it's like, well, ultimately, I think I tend to exclude men from feminism, but that's okay. But at the same time, anyway, I've rambled off. But anyway, my point is that there's certain behaviours that I think that at some point we all need to agree are not okay. And it's there's an uneven handling of these behaviours. There is a political bias on these platforms. I don't know whether it's a political bias. I think it's more about money, but I don't know if it's that simple either. Because this person is in clear breach of the terms over and over and over again. He's a known pedophile, a known predator, and he has been protected by them as well. So it's very weird. But anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. This is the live stream. I've wandered off. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Fact of the matter is I've got work to do and I'm avoiding it. So, hey. Okay. Okay. So that's my first video. I'm feeling a little bit about the whole thing. But this is me, what's and all, talking shit, forming my thoughts, obviously. I still don't have any real structure. When I've got someone to interview, there's a bit more structure to it. But this was more of an introductory thing for me to, first of all, test the gear. Second of all, test the sound and the video and see how it goes. And also just to build up my pain tolerance for being on camera, because it's really not my thing. And I apologise for my face. But I'm one of those people that if I find a reason to avoid it, I will. And not having put makeup on or brush my hair and all those things, they're all just strategies to avoid doing it. So I'm just going to do it as is. I'm going to schedule it, and feel free to comment on whatever features you like. That's fine with me. Anyway, I might be back later, and I've got a couple of interviews to come. So, yay. Bye. How do I finish this thing? I'm in technology, didn't you know?